Humility is a quality that makes a person treat others as equals. Humility is accepting the divine spark in every creation of God. Humility is but an extension of fraternal love for all humankind. While pride and vanity alienates, humility integrates and promotes affection, amity, peace and compassion. Humility is not to be mistaken for meekness and cowardice. It is the preserve of the most courageous, for it takes great moral courage and an evolved character to embrace humility, when one possesses power and wealth. Strength is silent, the trees tell me, and so is depth, the roots tell me, as also purity, the flower tells me. No tree ever proudly tells me that it is the tallest, nor did a root claim to emerge from the greatest depth. Neither did the flower say, "Nothing compares to me." We were newlyweds on a honeymoon at Naukuchiyatal, a remote hill resort in the Sivalik ranges of Kumaon, Uttarakhand. As the cab neared the place, zigzagging its way round the towering, blue mountains, lush with alpine greenery, the large lake loomed ahead, hedged in by gently sloping hills on all sides. The driver, an ebullient hills man, gave us a running narration on the history, geography and demography of the region. The long winding road went down the declination to the lake, skirting a swaying lotus pond. "Want to stop for some tea?" the man asked, slowing down near a quaint, wood and thatched tea house. Kumaoni hillsmen are tea addicts and these tea houses dot every kilometer of the snaking roads. A man in his late 30s was cleaning the tables and setting the wooden benches. He stepped out, a broad smile lighting up his leathery, weathered face.
"Welcome, sir,"
he said in perfect English,
"we serve the best tea hereabouts."
as he ushered us inside. The decor startled us. The tables were made of roots and lower trunks of trees, superbly crafted and polished, and the place was spotlessly clean. It overlooked the lake and the view through the open windows was breathtaking. The tea was excellent, and the vegetable pakoras delicious and crunchy with a hot, mint sauce.
"Can't we stay here for a couple of days?"
My wife wondered aloud. Loud enough for the man to hear.
"Why not?
He said eagerly.
If you need peace and silence amidst the marvels of nature in all its pristine glory, this is the place to be in. You see, tourists rarely stop here overnight, for Nainital and Bhimtal are larger resorts just an hour's drive from here, and visitors prefer to camp there with all modern amenities they have to offer. This place is absolutely uncrowded. I'll get you lodgings at the Forest Rest House across the lake."
My wife insisted and I couldn't refuse the new bride. The cab was sent away and Pramod Karnatak, that was our new host's name, took us down the stairs to the boat house. Several gaily colored pedal boats and sailboats were tethered, gently bobbing with the waves that the cool breeze whipped up. Pramod carried half our luggage himself, waving aside our objections with a careless air. He shouted at a boy of about 13, who was sitting on a big pedal boat, a four-seater.
"Raju, look after the tea house, while I'm gone. I'm taking Sahib and Madam to the rest house."
He called out and parked our luggage carefully onto the boat. We clambered aboard and Pramod took the tiller and we pedaled away. He talked little about himself, giving us an informative discourse on life in these regions. Instead, I introduced myself and my wife and asked him how he spoke such fluent English.
"Tourists come round all the time, most are from the south and the east, and if I am to do business, I'll have to speak a common language."
He grinned sheepishly. He took us up the wooded path to the rest house and talked to the caretaker.
"Here, Dajiu, these are my guests from Kanpur. See that they are cared for in every way."
We were surprised by the commanding tone of his voice. The elderly caretaker took to the task of making us comfortable to the extent that it was embarrassing. He treated us like royalty. Pramod took his leave and promised to come back in the evening.
I wind up business by sunset.
He told us.
Nobody comes here after dusk.
We were tired after the overnight train journey and the 2-hour drive from Kathgodam, and after a warm bath and a surprisingly elaborate lunch of grilled fish, scented rice, locally grown vegetables and the ubiquitous radish raita and chapatis, we snoozed off. I woke up to gentle taps on the door. It was Pramod, true to his word. He carried a small bag from which he fished out a large porcelain dish.
Fresh wild hare, hunted in the hills this afternoon and cooked over charcoal fire by yours truly.
He announced grandly, taking off the lid with a flourish. He then went on to produce a bottle of amber-colored liquid and set it down carefully on the table.
Fermented and specially cured, peach punch.
He winked at me slyly, merriment twinkling in his eyes.
Madam, if you wish for some special dish, just say it.
He continued at his chivalrous best.
I happen to be the best cook in these parts.
We thanked him profusely, and as my wife went out to see the dinner arrangements. With Dajiu, we later learnt, it was not a name, it literally meant elder brother in Kumaoni dialect. Pramod urged me to try some of his peach punch. As I opened the cork, a mellow aroma tweaked my nostrils.
This was quality moonshine country liquor, or cottage liquor to be more precise. I distill it myself.
Pramod confided.
Lot of peaches go waste, half eaten by birds and falling ripened to the ground.
He explained.
No longer good for the market in the plains, they go into my vat.
I made 2 drinks and offered him one. I take this just to reassure you, he said, gulping it down in one long swallow. I sipped it gingerly. It was one of the best I'd ever tasted. That's very good, I told him.
Yes, I've been told that before.
He smiled.
But don't overdo it. This is potent stuff.
He cautioned and got up to leave. What's the hurry? Stay a bit and have some more, I offered politely.
No, Sahib. Madam won't like a stranger getting high in her room.
He said matter-of-factly.
I'll continue in my tea house.
But won't you go home? I asked. Not before I've had a few more glasses, and enjoyed the music which we make in the evenings. A couple of my friends and I. Music. What kind of music? I was a music enthusiast myself. Oh, mostly folk songs accompanied by harmonium and dholak. Music is all that we have to entertain ourselves here. I went out to the edge of the lake to see him off. Dusk had descended and the hills were a sight to watch, with lights in houses twinkling like fireflies, all around the huge lake. It was cold and I wrapped my coat tightly round myself, taking out my wallet.
No, Sahib.
He said, a tinge of sadness in his voice, looking at the 500 rupee note that I held out to him.
This was not business. My tea house earns enough for my family, and our needs a few in these hills.
We stayed at Nokuchiatal for almost a week, spending our mornings walking along the wooded trails in the hills, boating on the lake. Strangely, no boatman ever charged a penny from us, feasting on Dajiu's simple but delicious food and enjoying Pramod's company and hospitality. Pramod took my wife up to the peach orchards, plucking the choicest ones for her, giving her free access to the beautiful nursery of ferns, flowering plants and other exotic varieties of temperate flora that grew on the stepped hillside directly overlooking his tea house.
He seems to own the entire valley.
She told me, as we retired for the night.
Nobody refuses him anything. The man's a friend to everybody. A genuinely nice character.
The next morning, it was time for us to leave and Pramod was there with the boat. He carried our luggage down the path to the lake, embarrassing us again with his graciousness. I tried to press some money into Dajiu's palms, but the old man refused politely. But this is for the room and the meals, I insisted, not to mention the countless cups of tea we were plied with every day. I thought.
No sir, I can't.
He said.
You are Pramodji's guests.
I was nonplussed, but kept my thoughts to myself.
A farewell meal for you too,
Said Pramod, bringing in big bowls of chicken soup garnished with locally grown herbs, huge omelets and crisply toasted loaves of bread. We ate half of it and Pramod packed the rest for our journey. He gifted my wife a basket of her favorite peaches, and secretly put a bottle of peach punch in my bag, winking at me wickedly. The cab he'd called up from Bhimtal arrived and we embraced before I stepped inside.
come again.
He called out.
This place is yours.
The driver stopped outside the Kathgodam railway station and carried our bags inside and into our compartment in the waiting train. It was still a good half an hour before it departed.
Anything I can bring you, sir?
He asked me. No, I don't think so. I said, paying him with a 1,000-rupee note. The normal cab fare for the distance was about 600 rupees. He handed me back 8 crisp 100-rupee notes.
I'll take the money for the fuel only.
He said.
You are Pramodji's guest.
That was too much for me. Who in God's name was the man at the tea house? I wondered. Listen, friend, I said aloud, who, after all, is Pramodji? He only owns a small tea house, doesn't he? The man looked at me queerly.
He is the zamindar of Nokuchiatal. He owns half the place, the rights of the lake, the boats, the orchards that extend over acres. He is a millionaire many times over and a corporator on Nainital's municipal council.
The man seemed to go on and on.
Most of all, he is a friend to us all.
He finished, a little short of breath. I stood gaping at the driver's receding back as he went to his cab. My wife stood dumbfounded beside me. I could picture Pramodji, the zamindar of Nokuchiatal, carrying our luggage, making us tea and pedaling our boat. My wife and I stood truly humbled by the humility of the man. Later, after a few years, when we took our 2 sons to Nokuchiatal and stopped at Pramodji's tea house, he stepped out smiling, a washcloth in his hands.
Raju,
He shouted at a lad of about 19.
make some pakoras and mint sauce. I'll make the tea myself.
He then greeted my wife with folded hands, embraced me and took my elder son upon his shoulders.
Come on son, I'll show you around the peach orchard.
And we watched him vanish up the slope.